Well, good morning, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank the organizing committee for inviting me to this session and take part in this extraordinary conference, and give me the opportunity to share with you my experience with leveraging collaboration between the government, the academia, and the industry here in Israel for the advancement of sustainable agriculture. What I would like to do in the coming 15 or so minutes is actually take you together with me to a story which I consider to be a very successful one. It took place here in Israel and completed just recently, and I was involved in only part of it, the very crucial part of it, and I would like to share it with you because I think it's a good lesson that we can all learn from it, also here in Israel, and maybe duplicate and continue this program, and definitely for many other countries to learn and maybe adapt this kind of approach. So it all started with the adoption of the recommendation of the Interministerial Committee for Leveraging Agriculture, Research and Development in Israel. It took place in 2012, almost 10 years from now. The government have decided to adopt the committee, which was headed by at that time Professor Eugene Kendall, a colleague of mine from the Hebrew University, which was the head of the National Economic Committee. So the program goals were to ensure that the generation of knowledge is an applied and potential in the short and the medium term, and not a long term. And short and medium term should be, again, when it comes to agriculture, it should be between 5 years to 10 years maximum. Long term would be certainly 15 to 20 years and more. And again, I will show you a few examples how this really, this goal was met, at least in our case, in our knowledge center that I was involved in. And ensuring the effective transfer of this knowledge from the Israel academia to the industry. And I think this is a very important point because most of the time, this interface between the academia and the industry is not so efficient and doesn't really work as it should be or as it could be. And one of the main goals of this program was to facilitate or to establish a mechanism which will work smoothly and will enable the transfer of the knowledge. And again, I will demonstrate how we did it, at least in our case, to ensure that this is exactly what happens. And ensuring the development of continuous and integrated research mechanism in the research institution. So not only between the academia and the industry, but rather within the institutions, within the universities and the research centers, research institution. And again, it sometimes might have as a kind of a paradox, but researchers within the same institution, within the same university, doesn't necessarily collaborate with each other. And I've seen it so many times. And what was one of the goals that was really emphasized in this program was that not only that you have to, as a research center, as a knowledge center, collaborate with the industry, but also within researchers in your institutions and with other institutions in Israel. And ensuring, of course, the government policy that support these goals. It's not, again, this goal is not that obvious, but the way it was then established and built was exactly to fulfill this very goal. And then the result of it was the establishment of 5 knowledge centers across Israel, from the north to the south. One of them was named Microbe, the development of application of microbial pesticides and growth enhancers to leverage the agrobiotechnology industry in Israel. We have quite a good research in this field, and I admit I was part of it many years ago. I did my master's degree and the PhD thesis on biological control of plant diseases. So definitely we have a very good research here, and it's also some kind of industry that actually applies those attitudes, but nevertheless not enough. And the main purpose of this center was to better enhance these capabilities here in Israel. The second one was Root of the Matter, this one that I was directly involved with, the Rootzone Knowledge Center for leveraging modern agriculture in arid areas, and I will elaborate later on how, and I use it as an example because I'm very familiar with what happened there, even though I really am quite familiar with the others. This one I was involved hands-on for many years. 2 others were in the precision agriculture business and area, but with different focuses. And the third one was development of system to optimize the application of agricultural inputs in the fields. And the other one, also it was or fell into the rubric of precision agriculture. It meant for the development of a application to improve livestock profitability through continuous monitoring and better decision-making processes. So it's kind of a decision-making tools based on, of course, data collected through sensors and monitors. And last but not least was the development of vaccines for viral diseases in the poultry industry. Just a curious event happened when the coronavirus outbreak came to Israel. This very group, this very knowledge center had actually the knowledge and the capabilities and the tools to deal with developing the viral vaccines that they were developing towards poultry industry, but actually to adapt them and to shift them into the CoV2, yes. And they did some attempts in this direction. So it was very a nice experience at that time. With that said, I would like now, and this was, if you wish, the background or the framework that was set by the government, by the Ministry of Agriculture in Israel, and it took since the adoption of the recommendation and the government decision that was made by December 2012, it took additional 4 years for those knowledge center to be established. And the one that I'm going to talk about was established in 2016. It calls Root of the Matter, and you can understand from the name that we were concentrating on the root systems of agricultural crops. Root of the Matter, Rootzone Knowledge Center for leveraging modern agriculture in arid areas. The scientific director was my colleague, Professor Shimon Rachmilevich from Ben-Gurion University, from Sde Boker branch, and myself as a administrative manager and the business consultant for this consortium. It was a consortium that employed at the time, it was already completed its term, 25 research groups from 3 different institutions. It was led by a group from Sde Boker branch in Ben-Gurion University in the Negev, the Hebrew University Faculty of Agriculture in Rehovot, Israel, and the Volcanic Center, the agricultural research organization in Bedagan, Israel. And it was clear for many years that we are overlooking the hidden part of the crop, which is the underground parts, the root system. And I won't go through all these quotations, but it was clear that if we want to tackle this challenge of increasing the food production to be able to feed the population, the growing population of the globe, we must start to deal with this challenging zone. And as Darwin's hypothesis said, the root is the brain of the plant, which describes the root. He described the roots as the smartest organ in the plant that senses the environment and move towards the resources. Having said that, though, this part is hidden and very difficult to reach and very difficult to research and observe. And this is exactly the challenge that we took in Root of the Matter. How we did it? And this is the organizational structure of the Root of the Matter. We had a accompanying professional committee of people coming from academia, from industry, from the business, from startups, from corporates. All those together guided us. Researchers coming from the Hebrew University, Faculty of Agriculture, the Volcanic Center, and Ben-Gurion University. My role was both to be the project coordinator, and this is since and because of my scientific and research background, and be the business leader of it. And for that purpose, what we have done from the very beginning, and this is following the guidelines of the tender at the time, we gathered an ecosystem of large companies like Syngenta, like Evogen, Rootility, Netafim, the irrigation, drip irrigation company, Hazera, Vilmoran, Hishtil, Physicochemicals, Adama, Syngenta nowadays, and many others. And we brought them together to the table to help us at the very beginning to define the needs, to define the goals, to define the right outcomes and products, so that we are not going to waste our time or the resources that we are getting from the government for vain. And also the regional R&D and research and development centers, which are spread all over the country. But for the matter of our purpose, we collaborated with those that were in the south of Israel, in the southern Israel, in Ramat Negev and Arava, southern Arava, and middle and northern Arava. So as you can see, we have 3 different research organizations, 2 universities, 1 governmental research organization, which is the Volcanic Center. We had the industry with us and the regional research and development centers. And just to name a few partnering companies, we had Syngenta Group with the Adama and Syngenta Crop Protection, Evogen, Rootility, these are all Israeli companies, Netafim, a drip irrigation company, Phytech, Hazera, Hishtil, Haifa Chemicals, Argitask, which is a agricultural AI company, and Gadot International. So the first project was a rootstock section relationship in vegetable grafting in response to abiotic stress, either droughts, a heat, cold, and many other abiotic stress. The other one was Project B, a decision-making system for streamlining the input interfaces based on a soil plant atmosphere system monitoring, the continuum of soil plant atmosphere, a continuum. And we built a system of lysimeters at the beginning in a greenhouse, research greenhouse scale of 8 liters each, and then of 80 liters each. And this was out in Sde Boker in the desert. And the next scale was 800 liters, a plot of 400 square meters. And this was done with the Arava Research Center, R&D Center in Zohar Station, just by the Dead Sea in the Arava. The third one, the third project was biological and chemical crop enhancers in the root zone, basically microbes and fine, beneficial microbes and fungi as biocontrol agents and crop enhancers. So all those projects were all by the guidelines and follow the guidelines of the and the principles of the Eugene Kendall program that I mentioned before. We won, by the way, at the time, as I mentioned, it was a competitive application. We won at the time, I think, the first place in the sense that we received the highest amount of money. At the time, it was 12 million shekels for 3 years, meaning 24 million shekels for 6 years. And at the end of it, as I mentioned, the total amount was only 15 millions, but absolutely it was unprecedented at the time that the government of Israel, the Ministry of Agriculture, will offer and will put so much money on this kind of consortia like this. And the outcome, just to mention a few success stories, the first one is this plant dietech company. It's a startup company initiated by one of the research group headed by Professor Menachem Moshe Leon from the Faculty of Agriculture in Rehovot, the Hebrew University. It's an automatic physiology-based plant phenotyping platform. I won't go into details. If we'll have some time during the panel, I will be more than happy to elaborate, but everybody else can go and visit this company. It started during the time of the research that we have carried out in the Knowledge Center, and then after developed into a commercial company, a startup company, raised money from investors, and already have many customers, not only in Israel. Another company that was later on established, this DOTS data of the soil. I was more involved in this one. I was a part of being the business advisor for the whole consortium, for the whole research center, knowledge center. I was the business advisor and guide for this group of researchers. We raised money for additional money from the government of Israel, from the Ministry of Economy, and then after from private investors, and this company was established. Actually, the PhD student, they graduated and developed this system of soil nitrate monitoring, continuous monitoring, finished his PhD, left the university, and joined the company as the CTO of the company, Chief Technology Officer, and they've now raised a few millions of dollars and doing very well so far. Another success story, and I will complete my talk with this, is the Bayer Netafim and Ben Gurion University collaboration that took place in 2019. Again, I was involved in establishing this collaboration as well. This was a research collaboration that Bayer and Netafim together came to us and said, look, we have worked with you through the Root of the Matter Knowledge Center, and we have realized that you have developed a very unique platform, integrated platform, very different disciplines, and this is exactly what we are looking for in developing together with Bayer a research program for applying certain pesticides via the irrigation system, the drip irrigation systems. And that's exactly what we did. Bayer put money on this project. I think it was published. They put $400,000 for 3 years, and this was actually ended just lately. But this is exactly what we had in mind and what the government of Israel, the Ministry of Agriculture, had in mind when they started and initiated the knowledge centers. Exactly this, to see that the knowledge and the technology that is being developed within the consortium, within the knowledge center, are either translated into this kind of collaboration between international companies and the academia, or being realized as startup companies, like with the DOTS and the Diatec. And I will complete my talk with this, and I will be more than happy to answer questions during the panel session. So thank you very much for your attention. It's been a pleasure, and I hope to be able to meet you face-to-face anytime soon.